Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pundits Pundit. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. We have quite a show on hand tonight. Let me go over some of the topics before I get into the crew. We're going to be talking about Jaylen Brown. We're going to be talking about the Dartmouth men's basketball team and Steve Garvey. Once upon a time, remember the LA Dodgers? Once upon a time, Garvey played there. And, of course, we'll have our standard Pundits points. With that said, the crew is Denzel Snipes. Welcome back to the big show.
Hey, what's going on? Great to be back. Definitely interesting topics tonight, and especially for one, what the first topic we'll cover here, because you're talking about a guy who looks like he not only should have been a basketball player, he should have been an astronaut, musician, and some other. So, it's looking pretty good for this show tonight. But glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Glad to have all you guys, all regulars here. George Eichhorn.
All right. Good evening, Scott. Good evening, guys. Looking forward to the program tonight.
Well, we're looking forward to having you. And last but not least, Jacob Christner. If all I got to do is put a muzzle on him once in a while, if I don't have to put a muzzle on him once in a while, it's good too. But we can't let the guy get away from the character that he has.
Well, a muzzle doesn't work for me. I just put a mouth on it.
Sure. Yeah,
everything's all good tonight. Everything's great. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, including your lighting, it's actually pretty good. You look at things starting to upgrade it a little bit there, Mr. Christner. Good stuff. With that said, I talked about the intro here in terms of topics and the guys, and with that said, we'll go to the one and only the sniper to take over.
All right. So thanks a lot, Scott. So I did say he did say that we had a loaded show, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I mentioned, of course, the first topic, the multi-talented world of Jaylen Brown. This is the basketball player that we're talking about. So, everyone is seeing the Boston Celtics going an absolute tear right now. They absolutely demolished the Warriors last week by 52 points. And they're running roughshod through the East. And they are in a lot of people's circles as the team that is slated to win it all this season. Finally, right? Mm-hmm. Well, as far as Jaylen Brown goes, it's a little bit more than on the court. The multi-talented world of Jaylen Brown. So what type of ways? In multiple worlds, actually. Well, as far as, personal things about himself, he is a vegetarian. He loves anime. He's a staunch supporter of Japan anime, loves soccer, and he also plays multiple instruments. You know what great in music history played multiple instruments? Prince. So, with that being said, it just all depends on what level of proficiency and excellence that he plays those instruments. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I'm pretty sure he does pretty good, even if he was self-taught or if he had lessons. But to know how to play multiple instruments, to be multifaceted there is second to none, in my opinion. A little bit more behind his resume. He was the youngest to lecture at Harvard University. He actually was offered a NASA internship. Get this, him and Josh Dobbs almost were astronaut, esque buddies to a certain extent. I'm not saying he knew the man, but that we actually covered Josh Dobbs before on this show, and how he actually has an aerospace engineer degree, and he actually worked for NASA at one point. Then he also played on Cal's chess team as well. A little bit more about him, more of him on the court. Well, he was picked third overall by the Boston Celtics, and he signed the largest NBA contract in history at the time at $304 million. So I want to start this off with Jacob. And I hit you up earlier about this, and I was like, and what? And then my Twitter was kind of not working, so I was wondering what talents that you were getting towards, and then you finally sent me the information. I took a look deeper into it, and I was like, wow, this guy, he's not only a busy guy, you never catch him sitting around twiddling his thumbs. But I want to get your thoughts on this, on Jaylen Brown and the multiple things that he can do, and do pretty well, actually.
Look at the age he is. Was he at 20?
Jaylen Brown? He's about 25, 26.
But I was thinking he's younger, but I'm just saying, but even regardless of that age, that just where he's at in his life already. And plus the fact into the business world, look what he's going to be. He's going to be reinvesting at $300 million. He's going to do all that kind of stuff like that. Look at the things too that he'll want to do. He's going to give to schools for the underprivileged. He's going to give to all of these. And he's young. And the biggest thing about something like this is all that we talked about with athletes for ages. We wanted to see them be this way.
Yeah.
I mean, to go after it, to go more than just because we spent so many years. I mean, back into the Basket Bros years, we talked about Moses Malone, 21 years and probably 10 years past his prime, because that's all you know. Now we're getting out of that, and we're getting out of that. We could see a lot of 6, 7, 8 year retirements in the midst of all of this because of the multifaceted, all that kind of stuff. You want to know who this reminds me of from the day? Who was that? Remind me, George. Who was that? The Canadiens goalie, from the 70s.
Dryden?
Stanley Cups.
Kenny Dryden?
Kenny Dryden. Thank you. This reminds me of Kenny Dryden from the day. He basically was 9 years, like 6, 7 Stanley Cups, and retired, became a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just retired, become a lawyer, and it's like those. And then there's Alan Page, who was the minute until he got to be forced out from age at 70 years old, was in Minnesota Supreme Court. He was at law school while he was in the NFL.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling that, George, by the way. I had to think of the name for a second. It's like Kenny Dryden. Kenny Dryden was a beast in the thing and didn't even matter because he had such brains. And then now you have this with Jaylen Brown. The thing is, Kenny Dryden was a unicorn of the day. So was Alan Page, unicorn of the day. We're going to get more of these. We're going to get more of these just because, there's more money to be this. There's more money to be this, and we could see a lot more of these early retirements, which probably doesn't hurt because we're going to be talking about Steve Garvey later. There's people in the world, regardless of which philosophy they're in, want there to be younger politicians, younger everything. You might want younger athletes. Retire at a certain time and go do something else. We might see that.
Yes, indeed. And especially when it comes to, I know Jaylen Brown doesn't play football, but we talked about this also, like especially in football, look at, for example, Sony Michel. Running back Sony Michel, he only played like 6 years in the league. Get this, he actually was teammates with Stetson Bennett at the University of Georgia, and he retired the year Stetson Bennett came into the NFL. That's nuts. He won 2 Super Bowl rings, won his rookie year with the Patriots, and then another, his final year with the Rams, and he retired at the age of 28. He got out of there before, he could get banged up to where he could have something debilitating for the rest of his life. He could catch CTE. He made his money. He got out early, and he's going to go do something else. And you're right. I think there's going to be more. I think it's going to happen more so in football because it's a contact sport. Basketball, you can kind of last a bit longer. Baseball, even longer, Hockey is probably a coin toss, but we've seen some greats play 15, 20 years in that sport. But you're on the right track on this one. I think we are going to see more. But the thing is they have to find these things because Jaylen Brown, he played chess, he plays instruments. He lectured at Harvard and everything like that. As great as Michael Jordan was, he gambled and loved his cigars, and that's what he loved to do, and that's great, And we all would sit here and beat our chests and talk about how the toughest men from back in that era. But a lot of those guys weren't multi-talented like Jaylen Brown is. This is the evolution of the athlete, in my opinion. And that's not saying anything bad about the guys of yesteryear or previous generations, because you want the next generation to be better than you. Kind of like if you got a son, right, or a daughter, you raise them to be like and have more than what you had and be better than you, especially if you were in a field that they're going to go into eventually. But I want to
real quickly, Junior Bridgman also. He was from the Milwaukee Bucks, 10 years in the league. He opened some Wendy's, got 300 Wendy's, retired, and now he's a billionaire.
Woo, that works.
Look that up. He's awesome.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But I want to go down here to Scott and get your thoughts about this, about Jaylen Brown and his multi-talents. And when you think about, players like him of this generation being good at more than one thing.
Well, first of all, I remember when Billy Sims got hurt and was forced to leave. Now he's got a lot of restaurants out there, Billy Sims Barbecue. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two, another guy who none of you guys have ever heard of, I only know him because I was covering the Dolphins at the time, is a guy by the name of Richard Diana. And he retired after like 1 or 2 years of Dolphins, became a doctor.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, how many guys have given up careers? Well, I'd rather just be a doctor instead. And then we had the Rhodes Scholar out of Florida State. It's not coming to my mind right now. Maybe
Oh yeah, he became a surgeon. He became a brain surgeon.
So hopefully I'll have the name will come up, but this guy here is unbelievable. So
Myron Roll
Yep.
played for the Titans,
Yeah.
and he became a doctor. Yep.
Myron Roll. Yeah. So you're talking about some very highly intelligent athletes. I'm sick and tired of talking about athletes that go broke after squandering it all. Unfortunately, you hear a lot of that. One of the things I did when I started this whole platform is I wasn't worried about what the athlete did on the field. Okay. I was more concerned about what they did after their playing days. And one of my all-time favorite guests is a guy that you guys haven't met, but George did once, is a guy by the name of Barry Foote.
Mhm.
Barry Foote, okay, actually went out there, played these, catcher in major leagues. His numbers didn't really blow you up, and managed. I played baseball, so went in the import-export business. And what do you end up having? Life after baseball. And he's doing it well. Another guy, Buddy Biancalana, that I had on my show, on our network. You know what? One of the big contributors during the World Series run, has a great thing going as well with athletes after the fact. So there's a lot of very intelligent athletes out there that are looking at the future. George, I know the Lions had a wide receiver out of Oklahoma, again, that draws a blank, but this guy managed his money well. And after 2 or 3 years, he ended up building a portfolio, and the guy will be fine. You know who I'm talking about?
It's not Brett Perriman. That wasn't Brett Perriman. No.
No, Brett Perriman's a Miami guy, but nevertheless, okay.
Yeah.
Whether you know the name or not, I don't think we give this subject, not we per se, society doesn't give this subject enough attention about the good athletes that turn out better because they're thinking long term. When we talk about the word student athlete, okay, forget all this NIL stuff and all the modern insanity going on in college football.
We'll touch on that in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, I'm with you. That bigger, the modern insanity is when Chip Kelly is happy that he took the job at Ohio State because he doesn't want to be the CEO anymore. Okay. But really, student athletes, like you're looking at now, you're just seeing some of these students really using the student approach because of life after sports.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about the athlete that got them to where they're at, but the student, that's why a lot of coaches will tell you, I want to leave now. I mean, I'm here not only win at this level, but we're here to go out there and mold students so they can do it. Bob Knight had an incredible track record. He wouldn't put your number and honor you in the stands unless you completed your degree. And he left, and even Isaiah Thomas wasn't getting honored until he finished his degree.
Same happened with Steph Curry.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, to me, folks, you're getting a lot out of this topic because it doesn't get addressed enough nationally. It doesn't until tonight. We encourage all your feedback as well. And all feedback to our topics can be, you can do it on southfloridatribune@gmail.com or in the chat room. Thanks both for dropping in. We appreciate you. Looking forward to having you back next week. All right. So go ahead. I guess it's George's turn, right? Unless you have something you want to add to it.
I have one quick question for you, Scott. So, sure. And we'll take the NBA for example, because it is said that approximately 68% of players after they leave the league wind up flat out broke within 5 years of leaving the league, right? And there's many contributing factors, overspending, bad money management, bad business decisions, et cetera, et cetera. Would you say that one of the factors as to why they end up like that is because, past the court or even past the field, they really didn't master anything else. They weren't good at anything else.
Well, let's put it to you this way. I think they're undereducated because they're only concerned about the one and done. Or many of them took the route from high school to the G League or wherever they're going. They didn't get the necessary education a lot of people didn't get. I mean, I'm not undermining them. Why do you think you have Duke has a great reputation for producing great players. I'd say Grant Hill's done pretty well for himself. I bet Christian Laettner's done well. Some of these places that emphasize academics are doing fine. Other ones, like I'd like to know how many Kentucky players went on to do things that we're talking about. I don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and pick on Kentucky because they're an elite college program. And if you've never been to Rupp Arena, you better go because to me, that's run like a pro environment. I loved my one trip there when FAU was there. So I would think, Denzel, to answer your question, compared to other sports where the NFL figures you have to play at least 2 or 3 years in college, right?
Right.
Well, 2 years is better than nothing, or 3. You know, I mean, or letting come out after 2 or 3, but at least you figure you've learned something in a couple of years. NBA doesn't really have that. In baseball, I don't think you really worry about it because what happens is you can come out, you know, as a high school guy, or if you go to college, you have to play there at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. You know, and another and another thing, you know, because you brought up a good point about the one and done and everything, and that's especially prevalent at schools like Duke. You know, a lot of that also is just also peer pressure, media pressure, because you think you get somebody that's hot, like for example, and it's like, man, listen, you can go right to the league right now. How many times do you think they've heard, dude, you can go to the league right now? You can always finish your degree later. And then they go to the league, they have their career for however long it is, but finishing that degree just gets put way on the back burner. So by the time they finish, and it's like, well, what next? Oh, shoot, there's that degree, and I haven't been in a classroom in so long. And so, you see, so you think a lot of it also is that as well, because they get pressurized to, hey, go to the league, and then just kind of dismiss their degree till later on.
Well, why don't you just blame the agents for that? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I say media pressure also. And yeah,
I got a 215 license, on the toughest insurance license you could get in Florida, and I did it into my 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, if you've ever taken a 215 license state test, they're looking to trick you all day long, man. I'm telling you, they are. I got it. I mean, I spent a lot of hours, you know, with cram courses, studying and whatever. My father-in-law even kidded around with me when I went to the library that you should get your own room and put duct tape on your mouth. And we always like joke around. Who am I going to talk to in the library anyway? So warrant the duct tape comment. But he was a character and a clown anyways. And we had such a great relationship that I took those comments and laughed at him. And now, you know, but regardless, that's a tough test to take. So blame the agents there. Sometimes agents overvalue what their players are worth. What about some of these guys that make the decision to go pro, and all of a sudden they can't go back to college or whatever they're going to do, depending on their sport. We don't even have any information about hockey. You know, I mean, you got juniors, you got this league, you got that league. So you're really looking at the 3 major sports here, plus and leaving them out because we don't have any data to really put hockey in the conversation. So blame the agents for that. You know, and again, why do they go broke so fast? Well, everybody thinks they're going to get all this money, and the NBA gives you guaranteed money. That's why. So it's more. The more guaranteed money, the more money you can squander.
Yeah. That's actually is what makes it worse too, because it's like you get guaranteed money, like you're gonna get this money. You would think it would be more, right? A lot of cases it is, and they still squander it off. But I want to swing it down to George and round this out. And I know you've been kind of chomping at the bit. Sorry for the dialogue and everything. He kind of spawned 2 other questions, but give us your thoughts about Jaylen Brown and players like him being multifaceted.
Well, you know, I definitely admire him. Obviously, being a multifaceted individual, playing a musical instrument, multi-instruments, and not only that, but leading the Celtics to, like you said earlier, Denzel, they are the favorites to take it all, to win it all, but that's only on paper. They have to prove it, obviously, in the postseason. But he's been a great a player and a valuable player for the Celtics this year. And I can go back to the days, you guys probably, Scott might remember, but when the athletes in the off season, they had to go to work.
Yes.
They went to work. The Al Kalines, the Mickey Lolich, I mean, the Pete Rose, I don't know what, but some of them went and became what they call manufacturers representative, reps. So that was a fancy term for a company to bring a star athlete on and wine and dine potential customers and clients. You know, but it was so common back then because they weren't making much money. So the athlete in the off season, he had to go to work to try to balance everything and support his family.
Right.
And now you see a situation where, like you said, the salaries are so exorbitant I mean, they're getting so much money, but yet they're not using it properly. They're not saving properly. They're not investing properly. So many of them. That is something that I think is getting maybe a little bit better. Tom Izzo, a kid that played on the bench, basically, Matt Ishbia. Can you believe this guy's a billionaire? He's 44 years old and he's a billionaire owner of the Phoenix Suns, and he played under Tom Izzo. So you talk about guys that had the smarts, like you said, Alan Page, and so many of these athletes. Steve Smith, another former Spartan. And then we know that, Scott mentioned Billy Sims. Oh my gosh, the restaurants. And Chris Hutchinson, Aiden's dad, is a surgeon at a hospital, emergency room surgeon. So I am so proud of, and their stories go on and on, like you guys said. I mean, some of them have had great careers away from the court or away from the field, but others have failed, but at least they tried. But yeah, we're seeing more and more. And it's not just because they won the title, but they played, they enjoyed it, but they kept outside interests and talents and skills they acquired, like you guys have been saying, going to college, even if it's for 2 or 3 years. And obviously, I know Isaiah, he went back to finish his degree, and so many players have done that. But yeah, it's so important because you got to plan your next step, what you're going to be doing once you can't play any longer.
Well, here, let me add a couple other names. You're going to go out there and throw a bunch of names. I don't mind going on this topic a little longer because this is probably one that a lot of folks are really getting to. Wow. Here in Miami, Joe Rose and Jimmy Seplow went on to be broadcasters. But what about in Tampa? How about Leroy Selman? Okay. Leroy Selman's a guy here, the number one, okay, was the architect behind building University of South Florida football program, and he had restaurants. Unfortunately, his passing led to his restaurants no longer being around. But the USF program, they even have a building named after Leroy Selman. And what's interesting about this topic is our third topic is going to lead to something that will be interrelated. So it's good that you're able to put this on the same show.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of names I wanted to mention. We'll go to your next topic. We'll take a station break, and then we'll continue on. Okay, Denzel, back to you.
All right. And to George's point, before we run up here, it's like, just like you said, back then in the offseason, these guys had to, go and get another job. They never really got a chance to recoup from on season. So it's like we play the season, then I got to work this, summer job or whatever off-season job. Then it's back to it. Nowadays, these guys actually have, the time, they make enough to where they can actually get time off, So, but we're going to our next topic here. Speaking, and Scott touched on it with the whole NIL thing, and that is Dartmouth's men's basketball voting to unionize. They will be the first labor union for college athletes. Players voted 13-2 to join the Service Employees International Union Local 560. Unionizing, now there comes with a drawback, okay? Unionizing could get the school kicked out of not only the Ivy League, but the NCAA altogether. And the reason for all of this is because due to NIL, Dartmouth actually recognizes their athletes as employees of the school. So you talk about the whole student-athlete label, well, yeah, that's no longer. Now they're actually employees of the school. That's what they consider them. So I want to start off. Actually, we'll go in reverse because you touched on it. Let's go, Scott. Your thoughts on this? Basically, a part two to what you talked about on the about 10 minutes ago. Go ahead.
All right. Well, here we go. Number one, how did it work out when Northwestern tried it? It didn't. Right?
True.
Northwestern was going to do it. Never worked out. So considering I got extremely long-winded on the last topic, I will be a lot less winded on this. And if that's worthy of anything in the chat, we've really done good work, okay? But the reality is this, okay? When the time comes that Dartmouth is playing for a national championship of any kind at the Division I level, okay, then I will actually pay attention to what they're doing. Otherwise, who really cares? Dartmouth, okay, Dartmouth, wherever part of the country you want to slice it, okay, You want to go out there and make a decision that will entirely get you kicked out of, well, maybe you end up being in, I don't even think you'd be in Division 3. Maybe if you're lucky, NAIA or whatever, nobody's going to care. Let's just see where your enrollment goes. Let's see how many people are really interested. If you're in the Ivy League, Dartmouth, here's what you do. You do the intelligent thing, intelligent and Ivy. Don't do it. But you've already done it in terms of voting. Don't do it. Because really, when we see you play for national championships in basketball and football, you become relevant. And you know what? Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant and became relevant. Well, you know what? Dartmouth will go from relevant to Mr. Irrelevant by making such a boneheaded move. And that's all I have to say. Good luck, Dartmouth. You're going to need it. You're not as smart as you think you are. To the comments. Joshua Bernstein, well, you know, he's let's read him. There we go, Josh. Can't wait to get him on. Josh, just a little heads up. I did hear from Mike Massaro recently. I'm going to be getting in touch with them real soon. Just, you know, Josh knows what I'm talking about. So that's what I think. Dartmouth, don't put your foot in your mouth. Boy, I can use every mouth analogy that I want here on this one. Nevertheless, I think it's one of the most boneheaded moves I've ever seen.
And that's totally understandable. I mean, and I get it. You know, every single university, you know, has a sports program and everything. And to your point, you know, because you know the way you see it is as well. Until you become a heavyweight or somewhat relevant, you know, a Duke, a North Carolina, a UCLA, a Kansas, or anything like that. You know, that's actually more known for churning out athletes via basketball, football, or what have you. Whereas at the end of the day, Dartmouth is to your point, they're in the Ivy League, you know. They're going to churn out professors and lawyers, no problem, okay? But outside of that, off the top of my head, outside of Ryan Fitzpatrick, what prevalent athlete came in? And that's a genuine question. What prevalent athlete came out of the Ivy League?
Well, Richard Diana would have been in the same school, but the guy went and became a doctor.
Yeah, there's another one.
You're right. They don't produce athletes that much. I remember one guy, George, back in 1979, he played for, gosh, here I am, folks. It's not, when I go back in time here, okay, University of Pennsylvania, when they went out there and played Michigan State in the Final Four. I think it was his name, Bagley, I think it was. I'm trying to remember. But there was a guy there that played for the University of Pennsylvania. And the University of Pennsylvania, the Quakers, so you know or not, had a heck of a run getting to the Final Four before Michigan State took care of them and Indiana State thereafter. But other than that, it's pretty hard to dig up a list of Ivy League athletes that have gone on to do some incredible things on the athletic court.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're moving on to George here and get your thoughts about this. Dartmouth unionizing, being the first labor union for college athletes. Go ahead.
Yeah, this has been tried before, and obviously it's gotten nowhere. But the two juniors behind it, a fellow named Cade Haskins and Romeo Murthel, said this is a big day today for our team, and we stuck together all season and we won this election. It's a self-evident that we as students can also be both campus workers and union members. Come on, really? I mean, like Scott said, I mean, unless this is coming from a major program, a number, top 10 team or a college, I mean, I don't see this going anywhere. I mean, it's different. It's unique. They're obviously getting a lot of ink, a lot of headlines, a lot of play on podcasts and sports radio. But the fact of the matter is that, everybody knows the rules going in, and we don't unionize athletes. The NCAA has frowned on this many, many times before when something like this has been tried. I know Southern Cal had something going one time where some of their athletes were trying to do the same thing. It's not going to work. But what are we? We're a sue happy. We're a lawyer promoting environment and country. And so people are going to try some weird things like this, lawsuits and unionization and that sort of thing. So I just am not in favor of it. I mean, these are smart kids, smart athletes, smart top college, obviously, Dartmouth. But the fact of the matter is, like you said, Dens, go on, be a lawyer and all that. But I don't see this being prevalent in other other college campuses and more athletes jumping in and saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna vote to be unionized too." It has nothing to do with politics. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter that let's play the sport the way it's supposed to be played. We all know that this is a stepping stone. Even if you didn't go to the pros, like we talked in the first segment, prepare yourself for where you're going to be. What is your next step going to be in this wide world? And that's where you acquire those skills from college, from internships, from mentoring, and all these different degrees that athletes get for their college. So I've said enough, but no, I'm not in favor of this at all.
Well, let me add something to it, okay? Let's set the record straight. Dartmouth isn't going broke. Can you imagine what they're charging for tuition? And number one, I don't even think they offer scholarships to their athletes at all, do they? If I remember right, I don't think that they do. I think
I don't know.
It's the Ivy League. They got so much money. They will never go broke in any aspect.
Well,
it's the
they
Ivy
won't,
League.
but I don't think that they offer scholarships, Denzel, okay, for their athletes. So we have to look at both sides. If they don't offer scholarships for their athletes, then you might have a little bit of a gray area why they're doing it, but that doesn't mean I'm changing my position on this topic.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I think it's a bad move. And if you're de-emphasizing sports, do what you're going to do, and that's unionize. I don't think it's a great move, but we have to understand every piece of information on this, okay, so that everyone knows that, they're not going broke.
No,
Right.
the day it's the Ivy League. The day they go broke, Jeff Bezos himself will be sleeping under a bridge in a cotton blanket.
He probably does that anyway.
With that being said, we'll go ahead and round it out with Jacob and get your thoughts about this topic. Go ahead, man.
Dartmouth's full of lawyers. We already can see this, but it's supposed to be an academic school. I have a theory on this, and boy, I don't know. Okay, this is just why I was thinking about this when I was reading about most of this stuff today and trying to get this. How much of this truly was a kid's coming up with it, and how much it was the seeds planted from the academics who hate the idea of money going to sports? Because there's a lot of academics, a lot of drama places, a lot of all of that who can't stand that sports get the most. And we know that's the thing. It's like no matter if it's Ivy League or whatever, they would still get a lot of money. And it's like, the thing is, these are lawyers. A lot of them are. They might read it up that the possibility of doing something like this can get them kicked out. I'll tell you, the academics wouldn't care. They'd love not having sports. They love not having sports there. And it's like, it's a theory. I can't say it is or not. But in a world of that, I mean, especially when we've been going through this for years and years and years. Academics, the drama departments, all this stuff hate sports. High schools, colleges hate it. They would love to be able to get most money. So I could see seeds being planted just a little bit on that. Just theory, but possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, with that being said, we're going to turn on over to the dean of the South Florida Tribune University himself for a station break because we got to pay some bills. Take it away, Scott.
Thank you so much, Denzel, and the rest of you. First of all, just so everybody knows, the Pundit is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So whether you're in the subway, on your bicycle, wherever, and you can't see us, you can hear us. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Also, please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Love the participation in the chat room led by Joshua Bernstein. Want to be a guest? Well, like I said, that's one way to do it is through the chat room. Or please send your topic ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, you may call it 954-304-4941. You can advertise for a show in particular, or we can come up with a package of all of them. And we have plenty of different ones. Also, we are broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. A couple of other things I want to get to before we turn over to Denzel. We have some great stuff on the way. It's our website, it's www.southfloridatribune.com. And, of course, the South Florida Tribune has also built Sideline Sports website that can be seen in the ticker at the bottom of our screen. Also, our Twitter/X information is that Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes for this show. And last but not least, okay, I have a book out there. I had a chance to go out there and market it with the Coral Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce today. A lot of people were pretty interested in it. including the head of it, Cindy Brief, who, by the way, is in it. She's the one who gave me the idea for StreamYard in the first place, and she earned a one-way ticket in the book because of that idea. And then Sideline Sports helped me get better at it, and now that's why we're doing it this way. Anyways, lessons from the microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, available on Kindle and Amazon, old school media versus new school media. With that said, I'm going to turn over to Denzel for the final topic. Go ahead, Denzel.
All right, thank you. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead to our third topic, and that is Mr. Steve Garvey himself. So he actually just recently moved into the November election for the California Senate seat. So he has no political background, but he obtained the second highest vote total in any crowded nonpartisan primary, and he held almost no campaign events since October. But yet he generated $11 million on ads, which boosted his profile. Now, those of y'all, and we made mention of him earlier, that Steve Garvey guy, Steve Garvey, not Harvey, the guy that talks and gives marriage advice. Steve Garvey, the guy that used to play baseball, is now running for a Senate seat. This guy right here. So those of y'all who don't know about him, he played in the first baseman in Major League Baseball from 1969 to 1987 with the Los Angeles Dodgers and with the San Diego Padres. He's a 10-time All-Star, 1974 National League Most Valuable Player, World Series champion in 1981, 2-time National League Championship Series Most Valuable Player, a 4-time Gold Glove, San Diego Padres number 6 retired. For a career, he batted .294, 2,599 hits, 272 home runs, 1,308 RBIs. How the hell is this guy not in Cooperstown is beyond me. But I want to start off with Jacob and get your thoughts about this. Someone with no political background that's running for a pretty big dog position in the state of California. Go.
You know, that sounds familiar. I don't know. I can't
put my finger on it, man. I know. I've seen a guy like him before.
Yeah, weird hair a few years back. You know, I don't know. But Steve Garvey, he didn't do his political events, but he put 11 million out there. There's a thing about him, and everybody that's known this guy. I mean, I saw him at the end of his career. You guys saw the whole of it. You and George. You know what I mean, Scott? You guys saw the whole of it. There are very few people as competitive as this man. That's why he put the 11 million out there. That's why he goes. The thing is, even though he didn't have the events there, he doesn't go into anything not to win. He's good. This is going to make, as I said, him making as the Republican side, him making it on the Republican side in California. Does he have a chance to win? Very little. It's California, but it makes him dangerous because anybody that's ever known the guy, he'll get more competitive. He'll make it interesting. But the big thing, though, is remember Jack Kemp. Mm-hmm. Jack Kemp did. Kemp was around for years after Buffalo. You know, you had these deals whatsoever. I have heard quite a few that want to be able to make it through. Remember Charles Barkley years ago talked about running for Alabama. Mm-hmm. Everything like that probably reasons that didn't work out. But truthfully, though, it takes a certain personality to want to do this. And right. Garvey probably figures his age, and it's like nothing to lose anymore. He's done everything else. So,
all right, Jacob, let me say something about Kemp. Super Bowl 39, Jacksonville, Florida. I had the opportunity to go ahead and spend time with Congressman Kemp. One of the best interviews I've ever done in my years of doing this business. And he is in my book, Lessons from the Microphone. And I ended up getting something back from their people thanking me for doing it. He was really proud of what I had done. And he was promoting youth football. And I talked to him a little bit about politics, but about what he was doing on the field. And, you know, that's just a different animal. When you talk about Jack Kemp, you struck a chord there with a guy who has done a marvelous job. You can pick up your thought. I want to make sure while you were on the Kemp thing, it didn't escape my mind. Back to you, Jacob.
Oh, no, not at all. No, not at all. It's like it's completely under the you got to remember Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford from Michigan. He did his end. We can name Whizzer White, who was a Supreme Court justice. He did it. Lots of people have done this over the years, and it's like regardless of anything, you have to be, like I said, this is a personality. to be. I mean, it's a mind you, it's not just a competitive personality. A billion people are a competitive personality. You have to be willing to take a lot of pot shots. Maybe it's the fans he hadn't taken with all those years that he's like, well, I've done it before. Oh well.
All right,
And you know what? One thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
Let's put Duncan Lozinski's comment up there. I want to answer this for those interesting. Duncan, thank you very much. How are the book sales going? They're getting better, but we're looking to add more partners as well, distribution partners to get it out there. But thank you very much for asking, Duncan. I really appreciate the big time. It's one of those things that I had dedicated all year, especially the first part, to try to go out there and find different marketing approaches to talk about the book, being invited on shows. And as I continue to look at the different providers, whether I hire anybody to do it or whether I bring on somebody else, we're going to find different ways to get it out to as many places. So, Duncan, thank you very much for bringing that up. I really appreciate you more than you'll ever know, Duncan. Thanks. All right, go ahead.
So, and you know, one thing I wanted to make mention to Jacob here is, you know, when you talk about politicians in the state of California, okay, that have a background in sports or entertainment, and you look at the history of it, there was that guy that played Terminator once that was governor of that state. Also, and if I'm not mistaken, Scott, this was your favorite president of all time. He was governor of California before he took the office in White House, Ronald Reagan.
Oh, no doubt. Well, your memory
was and he was in the acting business before he got into politics.
Jesse Ventura
as well. But he was governor of the state of Minnesota. But with that being said, as far as that state, California, you can look at the history and you can see that there's been plenty of people who've had background in sports and entertainment. Like, history's kind of on Steve Garvey's side, right? Even if he doesn't have any experience. But you know, I want to take it to Scott and get your thoughts about this one, about Steve Garvey and him running for the election seat in California.
There are times, 90% of my policy is I don't allow politics on this show. But there's that exception to the rule, and this is the exception to the rule, which I think is great. Now, I didn't really know if this was Jacob's show because every person he talked about, I was going to mention. Okay. But, you know, since I beat up on Christner a lot, he's entitled to get his glory in the sun. Of course, for all you folks know, make sure you turn your clocks forward. Daylight savings time is coming up. I want to make sure that public service outfit is out there. Yeah, Denzel, you definitely have a great memory. Ronald Reagan was my favorite president of all time. You know, to me, though, it was his debate skills and his ability to articulate behind the camera and a lot of things that when you're in our business, you try to pick up certain things that can make what you do a whole lot better. But let's face the reality. I mean, Gerald Ford, he went on to become president of the United States. Steve Largen's done all right for himself, too.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. In fact, I would probably one day venture, we're going to do one show on one topic. Okay. And this will be the show. Okay. So all of us are going to collectively research what athletes became politicians, and hopefully we'll get some feedback. And for a lot of you folks that are watching this show or listening to it, if you want to add names, you know the ways to get us to our website, to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. We encourage feedback on all aspects of social media. Large and Son, The Job California. As far as Steve Garvey is concerned, you know what? Why not? I mean, to me, if he has certain belief systems that he wants to convey to everybody else, you know, he'll never know if he doesn't give it a shot.
Yeah,
you don't know what kind of politicians we're going to get until they finally take those positions, and then you find out. Remember, it's not a term that they're going to get, which is a lifetime term. Your report card is every 2 to 4 years, whether you retain that position. I have no problem with him. I can tell you one thing about Garvey, though. Great work ethic. There was a time before he got hurt, but the Lou Gehrig streak, I wondered whether he'd have a chance to break it, but then he did get hurt. I think the streak stopped 1,400 games, but he gave it a whale of a shot. He was a good leader with the Dodgers, so a lot of those things that he exhibited, and with the San Diego Padres. So,
yeah,
how can you? More power to him. That's all I can say. But future topic, okay, that we will talk about at some point, and it may be sooner than later, that we're going to talk about some athletes that became good politicians, and then we'll be able to go ahead and reopen this discussion. But every now and then, what I'm going to do as the executive producer of this show is I'm going to find ideas, whether it's to bring outside guests in or find a topic that we can go an entire show with, because there's no question in my mind that some of them require more than 10 to 15 minutes. And this is one of them. But great topic by you guys. More power to Garvey.
Yep. And you know, it also helps that he played for 2 California teams in the majors as well. So he's well known out there. But I want to round this out with George and get your thoughts about Steve Garvey running for the California Senate seat. Go ahead.
Well, most of you guys don't know, I was on the board of directors at one time for the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. And every year I would bring up Steve Garvey's name. The problem was, in that sense, because he was only at Michigan State for a couple of years in baseball before he jumped to the major leagues, there was no other ties than those 2 years or 3 years, whatever, at MSU. I'm glad you brought up Jack Kemp, because I got a Jack Kemp story also. I was flying back from Washington, D.C., and on the plane, you're not going to believe this, right in front of me was Jack Kemp. So he was, at the time, I believe it might have been right before they picked him as the vice presidential nominee when he ran for office with the general election. I'm not surprised at all about Steve Garvey. I mean, this is a good man. I know he's had issues for some people on the marital side. I don't want to get into that. Steve is a brilliant man. He really is well-grounded. And like you said, he has been entrenched in California for a long, long time right now. Another name that I thought of was Jim Bunning. Jim Bunning threw no-hitters in Detroit and Philadelphia and became a very distinguished senator of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I won't say any more because, like Scott said, this will make for a great show sometime with everybody else.
Yeah.
But no, hey, listen, Steve is a good man, and is there a chance he could win? Of course, there's always a chance, but we know that California has not elected a Republican in a long, long time in the Senate. That being said, I applaud Steve Garvey. Again, he went on after his distinguished career and has been involved in many other charities and other endeavors in Southern California. And Scott, I'm glad you brought up about San Diego. Yeah, because he was here. He was here when the Padres lost to the Tigers in the '84 World Series. Steve was on that team. So anyways, those are just some tidbits I have. But yeah, I applaud him. I mean, he wants to spend his money, and more power to him, but he's getting his name out there more, and he'll get some recognition. But I know he's not looking for that. He just wants to help out. He wants to help make that state better.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get to our pundit's point, I just want to point out we're going to come full circle here. Okay, we're going to go back to the first topic, and that is after sports and what these athletes or former athletes do. Because George made mention of a man who went to Michigan State and then went on to become a legend in Southern California. Now, if memory serves me correct, there's a basketball legend who played at Michigan State and went to Southern California and became a legend. Man, he played on one of those LA basketball teams. Y'all might have to help me out.
The Clippers?
But anyway,
The Clippers?
And he went on to be, in the front office of, basketball. It's about what you do after the game. And that's the overall message of this episode, people. It's about what you do after the game. Don't become, and you know what? Let me put this out there to the young up-and-coming athletes, okay? Don't become a statistic. Don't, become victim to overspending or anything like that. I urge you to find a talent that's going to carry you past the court, past the football field, because believe it or not, that life rule still applies when it comes to sports. Everyone is one injury away. Even if you don't make it to the typical time of retirement, everyone is one injury away. Okay? So I urge you, find something that's going to sustain you when your career is over. With that being said, it's pundit point time, and I'm passing it back to the dean of the South Florida Tribune, Mr. Scott, Professor Scott Morganroth. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Denzel. You know what? Even though we haven't talked about coaches going into politics, for a lot of our viewers out there, there's one name that does pop up in my mind named Tommy Tuberville. So There's a guy here who I think should get mentioned on the show. Again, we are going to do another episode on this, but we are going to key in on it. Don't worry, we won't have any shortage. We may need 2 hours, so it's going to be a challenge to be able to pick certain ones out. Mark my word, this is such a great subject, and I judge a lot of the people I bring on here based on not only what you did during your athletic career, but what you did afterwards. So to be able to have the multi-talented topic and Steve Garvey as bookends to me is fantastic. I have a couple of pundits points. One will be a lot shorter than the other. Florida Atlantic University needed a win yesterday in North Texas, and they got it. Guess what? Another nationally televised game for FAU. I will be covering FAU in Memphis on Saturday at noon Eastern time. I believe they're going to be taking on CBS. So looking forward to being there for that one. Now, there's my real pundit's point. I have to make this noted out there. I will be having a heart procedure on Thursday. Nothing serious, just more exploratory, okay? But my wife isn't happy with this. But then again, she's been dealing with everything anyhow, okay? I will be returning to Sebring Raceway for the mobile 12 hours of Sebring the next day, okay? The next day. Now, I covered the Rolex 24-hour race, and a few people that I know that realize I have a passion for motorsports. The network will have a lot of programming coming on in the next 10 days or so. So I just want to let everybody know, get ready for daylight savings time. We'll be racing in Sebring with an extra hour to play with. And I love endurance racing. Jeez, oh, Pete's, when you put me in a NASCAR and I'm whipping around that track at 147 and change, whatever. But endurance racing to me doesn't get enough publicity because you got to realize that, well, I'm insane enough to take these rides across the country 24, 30 hours at a time anyways, depending on what I do and what interstates I'm on. You know, stay away from Georgia. They don't really kind of like me out there. But that's why I put candy behind the wheel for the most part in certain places there. Sorry, Georgia cops. You don't know if you really want to look me up. Well, whatever. But nevertheless, looking forward to Sebring again. This will be my third time covering Sebring. And you know what? Covering the Rolex 24 to me was something that I'll never forget. But let me give you a little bit of information, folks. After Sebring, I'm going to be looking for another 24-hour race down the road. And I'm going to be looking for it somewhere around the world. And I'll throw that as a teaser. So there you go. Sebring International Raceway, 24 hours after I get out of the hospital. I ain't going anywhere. I love you guys. I got other shows. But I'll have more stories. And I know everybody in this audience can appreciate that. There you have it. All right, Jacob. I have to turn it over to you.
Hey, so is the way they're going to test your heart is the dude actually driving it?
Well, don't you ever get me thinking about that, because you know what? Here's the thing. If there was a way I could drive it, that's one thing. When I told my wife one time that I had an opportunity to drive, and I told her it's the best day of my life, even over a wedding. Well, you got 1A and 1B. It had to be politically.
Well,
but she got to cover the race at Homestead, and then she got more curiosity as she was looking around. Well, you know, he does have a need for speed out there, so I could kind of appreciate it being 1A and 1B. But when you put me behind the wheel, I'm an animal, man. I don't care, whatever. I am nowadays not as interested in driving in the city. I let her do it. When you need somebody on the those long stretches, bring me on, baby. All right, back to you, Chris.
Yeah. Mike,
going again.
Mike Tyson. I got to say this. He got the match against Jake Paul. I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think Paul would have the guts. But see, here's the problem I have with this match. Yes, it's going to get its tickets. People are going to buy these. They're going to go to AT&T Stadium. They're going to do this. But here's an issue with your legacy. You have to knock his block off and shortly. You have to. Because I don't care if you're 58 years old and you'll be up that heading that way. We've seen your videos. We've seen your videos. You move maybe one step below 20 years old. You're a freak of nature. We've seen how you hit still. It's ridiculous. So, truthfully, what are you doing on this if you're not going to knock the tar out of him? And, I mean, Jake Paul does not get into these matches if he's not going to get a fight in there. He can't really do anything to you. if there's not a set thing going on. So that's the big thing about all of this. And what if he, quote unquote, I'm going to say quote unquote, knocks you out? And it's like, is it worth the pay? Is it worth it? Is any of that worth it? And if you go many rounds with the guy, even if you win, that's what I'm saying. Even if you win, what was the point? Is that maybe they'll say, oh, he was older. We've seen you. We've seen your footwork still. You should kill him. And that's where the thing is. You're kind of putting your legacy on the line for a few bucks.
Denzel.
All right. So my point real quick. So Coach Prime actually had comments about start playing on this team, wide receiver, cornerback Travis Hunter, who you all know plays both wide receiver and cornerback at the University of Buffalo. He stated that Colorado, yes. So he stated that Travis Hunter should play both ways in the NFL. He was quoted as saying the NFL got a problem. What are you going to draft him as? I think he's 100% correct, because I think he's a stud at both positions. Like, what are you going to do? And that's coming from a man who, while he's primarily known as a defender, he played a little bit of offense when he was at Dallas and even a little bit when he was in Atlanta. And so he knows about playing both sides of the ball. Hell, he played all three sides of the ball. He was a returner, so, but the name of it is, what is he getting drafted as? There have been athletes who have played two positions, and usually it's on one side of the ball. For example, A.J. Hawk, Ohio State. He played strong safety and he played linebacker. He played both of them excellent. Well, they had to pick one, so they drafted him as a linebacker. He went on to play for the Packers and win a Super Bowl with them, right? But here you have someone who's actually good on both sides of the ball. So that's the question. And you know what? Maybe I'll just leave it open to the people at home. Is, what do you think he should be drafted as? A wide receiver or a cornerback? And do you think that he should play both ways in the NFL? All right, George.
All right. Okay, George.
I'm going to give you a couple of numbers. 18 and 105. 18 wins and 105 losses.
Who is this?
We are Detroit basketball. This is disgusting. Just disgusting. The Pistons are 9 and 52. The University of Detroit Titans, Dick Vitale's former team, 1 and 31 this year. And the University of Michigan Wolverines, with a terrible Juwan Howard-led season, 8 and 22. So add them up, folks. 18 wins and 105 losses. Now, this is coming from, obviously, a town that still likes basketball, maybe not as much as they used to, and a team that's going to host the Sweet 16, the Midwest Regional at Little Caesars Arena. But it's really a bad vibe here, because obviously these three records are just atrocious, and it's beginning to look like maybe some more changes are needed. Obviously, we know some of them are going to be happening. Pistons, of course, had cleaned the roster out as much as they could a couple months back, but the situation in basketball is just I've never seen anything like this, and I bet Scott hasn't either. That being said, Michigan State Spartans, of course, still have a chance to make the tournament, and the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies with Coach Campy, they have a good shot at it too. They're the number one seed going into the tournament action, which did start, by the way, a day or so ago. So the state could still get a couple of bids, but the fact of the matter that these three teams are 18 and 105 is just breaking my heart. Breaking it. It's not been a good read here on basketball at both the pro and college level around this area.
All right, well, you know what? Because you're on screen, guess what? You get to stay on it, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Well, thank you, Scott. You can find my columns in the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune. I'll be contributing also to Sideline Sports and their website. You can also find a link at the end of my column. I wrote a book on Detroit sports media. And also, I can be reached at gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn under my name. And also, you can reach me at Sanji Sports 99 on Twitter. Find me on 108 Stitches, the Sports Exchange, Pundits, Pundit, fire up all these great shows on the network. I'm happy to be part of it. Scott and I have been associated with each other more than 40 years. And I was honored to write the forward for his new book. So make sure you guys get a copy of Scott's new book.
Thank you, George. And by the way, George will be appearing on Fire Up, which will be immediately after the Sports Exchange. Ralph Williams and Jeremy Ballrick and Candy Ebling will be hosting that show. So that's an excellent show. So I hope you can join in. And go ahead, Jacob.
5 days a week on Sideline Sports and the South Florida Tribune. 4 days a week and fifth off the bench if need be. Also, I write here and there for the Sideline Sports and the South Florida Tribune, along with the Inscriber magazine and a few other things in between.
Well done. Okay, Denzel.
Well, when I'm not rescuing puppies from a burning orphanage or anything, you can catch me on Sideline Sports. Also, I'm, of course, on the South Florida Tribune on this show. And you can catch me at Denzel Sniper 13 on Twitch, Denzel Snipes 13 on YouTube, and Denzel Snipes on Facebook. Keep in touch, tune in, and follow.
Very good. Well, just let everybody know, okay, I won't go over everything again. I mentioned it, plus it's been on the screen as well. But all of our information can actually be seen on www.southfloridatribune.com, our website that Candy Ebling does a masterful job putting together. So she has built this from the ground up, and she's also built SidelineSportsNet.com from the ground up. So that's SidelineSportsNet.com. I'll talk about my book really quickly. That link is on my book. Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, pretty much old school media versus new school media. I've had students actually reach out to me wanting advice. They said, the best thing you can do is buy the book and you'll get it all. And I had some young lady from Alabama reach out to me recently. So there you go. They're pointing at it. So if you're a student or you're brand new to the industry, or you just want to learn a little bit about what we do, this book here, I put a lot of time. Thanks, George, for putting it up there. I really appreciate that. It's a good read for everybody. And I'm working on getting more and more providers. And once again, Duncan Lozinski, thank you very much for taking interest. I know he talks about a lot of people do as well. I have a part 2 in the works, and I'm going to be working on a bunch of other books. I really enjoyed writing books because it's an opportunity to go out there and tell stories at this point in my life about what I've done. And this year I went into with no expectation about how many events we were going to go into. It's about whether or not what I put in there is book worthy, and that's the one approach I've taken in 2024. So looking forward to appearing on a lot more shows. This is certainly one of my favorite shows because, let's face reality, the topics are all over the map. And I think that's important here as we try to build a 60 minutes 2020 type of magazine style show. And this one takes a lot of time to prepare for it. But our goal here is to make sure we entertain, inform, and certainly we do our very best to try to do that, as does everybody on our network. So once again, Lessons from the Microphone, you can find the link on our website. And we go out there and broadcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you're watching it for the first time, just please hit the red subscribe button. You'll get all our daily updates. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of Pundits Pundit. On behalf of George Eichhorn, Denzel Snipes, Jacob Christner, and myself, Scott Morgan, Motor City Madmouth, thank you for joining us. Fire Up is next. Candy Ebling, take it away.